Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. But if you need a little bit of additional help with that homework, you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, TMO73, and I am joined by Mike Rance, as always.
Hello, friends.
And our special guest today is Naoki. Naoki, say hi.
I do stuff for Rogues Guild, but I'm the VTuber.
Yeah, so you're joining us today to talk about spoilers. Check out Naoki and give Naoki a follow and stuff in the description to go to the Twitch channel for Naoki. Glad to have you with us. Before we get into it, obviously so grateful that you all are here. We're very excited to talk about all this stuff. Be sure to click that like and subscribe button because YouTube algorithm likes engagement. While we're talking about all these spoilers, if you still haven't pre-ordered your set yet, which I'd be surprised if you haven't because these cards are insane, you should check out the link in the description below to get Magic Stone More Zero boxes from Odyssey Games. For $85 a box, they still have boxes available. And then if you want to support us and what we do, you can consider clicking that join button. You get access to all those cool emotes that Rustin's been spamming. And as you can see in the corner, we're trying to get to 100 new members. That's our first stage for our new goal. And at that point, we can unlock Lumia as an emote. So if you like what we do, want to consider supporting us, consider doing that. Oof. Now with that out of the way, we have a lot of stuff to get through. So we're going hard up 4 a day. That's twice as many as we got last spoiler season. We're going through quick.
Pretty lit.
And we're going to go ahead and talk about, start with light. We're going to start with Princess Kaguya. So 1 white, 1 colorless on her resonator side. If you would produce Will with a magic stone you control, you produce that Will plus Moon, so 2 Will per stone. Calling a magic stone doesn't cause your J rulers to rest. And this tap for Moon, this card gains +2/+2 and flying until end of turn. Whew, that's a lot. Spell side though is 1 white, 1 colorless quick cast. Choose a ruler with tag you control, and another ruler with tag you own from outside the game, so sideboard. Swap them, and if you spent Moon to play this card, you get to put Princess Kaguya into the field instead of putting it into its owner's hand. The resonator side is a 6/6, by the way, and has no symbol skills by itself. Josh Patton, welcome, buddy. Thank you for joining as a member.
What's up, bud?
Let's go ahead and bump that goal up. Happy to have you here, buddy. You can go ahead and pick up your syllabus and report to class. Thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I
am in love with this card. I love the concept of Power Rangers 6 Sages, being able to like hot swap them for utility. I haven't quite decided which ones I want to start with, and I think that's the hardest.
All of them. Apparently, just all of them.
Well, no. So like because you won't get the beginning of the game triggers.
Yeah.
So you do need to pick 2 to start with.
So just pick the broken ones.
Yeah, Almerius and Feetsing, right?
There you go. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who've been saying that Gruce Ballesta is a good starting standard one because you can play a 1-of Moonstone, have Gruce Ballesta grab your Moonstone, and then Kaguya's life regardless without having to like overcommit to Moon, which I think is valid. One of the things that I do want to talk about Kaguya specifically, I think that very, very cool. Does not give me nearly as many PTSD flashbacks as we were all maybe concerned with about Kaguya when we heard Kaguya was in the set.
It doesn't counter on a body?
It's not a counter on a body, so I think
we're good.
Later.
Unplayable.
So for me, it is this whole idea of what this spells for Marvels of this set, of Marvels having this kind of like additional condition from their spell side to get the resonator side as part of the same like sequence, and that to me is really cool design space. And if that's what separates like the feel of a split Marvel from a regular split card, I think that's a really cool distinction and a really cool like design choice.
I've got 2 quick additions to this. First of all, remember Odin be careful who you call ugly in high school. This is him now.
Yeah.
Yada yada yada. Okay. Either way, something really interesting about these new Marvels with that extra mode. I was talking to some of my friends who, have kind of played Force World with me very casually, but are like really heavy into Magic the Gathering. And they saw these spoilers pop up when I was commenting on them, and they messaged me and they said, "Mike, these look really, really cool. Can I try get back in the game with you?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's where we're going, isn't it?"
I will have to say that like these are gorgeous. Like the artworks of these is gorgeous. They continue to knock it out of the park. And the other thing that feels really good about the Marvels, regardless, we'll get to the other ones too, is that these feel power-wise, they feel like Marvels, like they feel impactful, but they are not pigeonholed for like you have to have 4 of this to play this ruler, which I think was the mistake of the EDL Marvels. Like
Kiki.
Like Prologue to Autorochtia Marvels were like not strong enough, but also not pigeonholed outside of like Lenneth, but they weren't strong enough to like warrant that. And then EDL was like, hey, these are really good, probably required for the ruler you want to run. Okay, crap, that's not good. These are like, they feel really good power wise, but they don't like. I see Princess Kaguya and I go, yeah, I could run that with all 6 sages. Like any 6 sage combination I could think about wanting to play it with.
Immediately, I think looking at Princess Kaguya, I'm like, cool. This is probably like a 2 of in a very dedicated 6 sages Power Rangers deck. I love that name already.
Yeah.
Go, Princess Kaguya.
So here's what we're gonna do. Half of our sideboard is gonna be 6 sages we're trying to play that aren't the ones we're starting with. The other half of our sideboard is the 7 kings. So your entire your entire sideboard is just rulers. Is just rulers so that you can play these ridiculous Marvel rares.
It'll make me fun to play Valentina again. Oh my god, this card is Valentina again.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess I know what deck I'm playing this time around, huh?
Overall, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily too much to say about Princess Kaguya by herself, because like I think she shines best like with the cards that she supports through her natural ramp, which is cool. I really like that as a design space. Yeah, I'm very excited to goof around with it.
One thing that I'm not 100% sure on is if you control 2 Kaguyas, do you produce Moon every time you tap?
No, because they're both
both a replacement at the
they're
same
both
time.
a replacement. Yeah, I don't think you can like double because like because what would happen is because what happens is Kaguya, the first Kaguya replaces the production from the stone. And so Kaguya is technically kind of producing the moon, like it's a replacement through Kaguya. So like the second Kaguya can't replace it because it's being produced by a Kaguya and not a magic stone. It's weird. Would be my thought.
Odin did the same thing, but it was if you had 2 Odins, each stone would produce 3 will.
Right. Maybe.
So it's a very strange thing. I guess we'll just wait till rule.
Like, yeah. Good old Q&A documents.
Yeah.
Those are helpful.
Get those German judge rulings at some point.
Yeah, we'll get them at some point. Next up, we have our first duet, which is we're going to be doing the duets of all of them. Is we have Duet of Light, 1 white, 2 white. Choose 1. You may choose an additional 1 for each recovered J/ruler you control. 2,000 life. Put non-magic stone, non-chant card, or alternative card with total cost 3 or less from your graveyard into the field. You may only put a non-chant part of that alternative card into the field. And the last mode is put 4 +1/+1 counters on each J resonator you control. Similarly to quickly getting out of the way, thoughts about the Marvels in their design space. Let's talk about duets in their design space. I really like them because they are not only good with 6 sages, but they are also very cool situationally with older rulers. It's like
they're still valid.
Like older rulers can still get 2 modes based on when you want to be playing these cards, which I think is really cool. Like it makes me want to
also design space and epic stories just there. Bam.
Yeah.
It's just they're just designed. They're designed for tag, obviously, but they're also just like generally designed for casual play modes. They're good to play like before you tap your roulette for turn, like you were saying. It's just like it feels like a very natural flow of how the game. It feels like it's taking the most advantage I've seen in a long time out of the game's unique mechanics, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, this is a card that's like, you could not design a card like this in Magic. Like, that kind of card would have no place in Magic. And like, even applying this to only having one ruler, this card has a unique flavor to that you could not have in Magic, unless you were playing Commander, of course. But like, even then, like, bleh.
Yeah, it really feels like I Spy saw Commander Legends and went, "Hey, we could do that."
Yeah,
but better.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Duet, specifically, this card I think really has a couple of implications. One, this card can grab. First off, this card can grab Rhea from the graveyard because her total cost is 3, which I think is actually very relevant for Oberazuki. And because the other mode is put 4 +1/+1 counters, and they resolve top to bottom. So you can put something into play, and then immediately put 4 counters on the thing that you put into play.
And you can gain 2,000 life.
But, like, you don't need to, because Rhea will just immediately gain you a grand, too. So, like, with Oberazuki, I think this is a main deck playable card for Oberazuki.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
well, any value white spell that puts 1/1 counters is playable in Oberazuki.
Yeah. No, this is an awesome card. It has a lot of implications for a lot of different takes on decks. Like, even the idea of like a white weenie deck of like gain 2 grand of life to restabilize because maybe I haven't set up a big enough board yet, and then make all of my dudes big. Like, great, do it.
Yeah, having 9,000 life without Marius is good.
Yeah, I am. This is a cool card. I like this card a lot.
Eat shit, Lilius.
Yeah. Also, rip Lilius.
Yeah, I'm still kind of debating on the relevancy of this card. I think it's very situational. I feel like it might be closer in my mind to a sideboard card, personally speaking.
Sure,
but the fact that it's 2 will to bring back a 3 cost it's basically just Command of Life and Death in white, which is really cool.
Yeah, Command of Life and Death was a card that saw a lot of play.
Yeah, that card was great. That card was great when I brought back Whiteleaf with it. That shit's awesome.
Yeah.
Next
up we have Beginning of a Fairy Tale. 1 white quick cast. Put 2 200 light spirit fairy tale resonator tokens into the field. If this card was awakened, you draw a card. And the awakening is rest a recovered J/ruler you control. Quick note before we talk about this card. I really like this design space of using your ruler taps for specifically J ruler taps. For like awakening stuff. We'll see this in other cards as well. I really like that because this is something that actually could see play with a single ruler deck, because most of the time your J ruler can't do anything the turn it comes into play. And so like those kinds of cards can take advantage of that still. You're not going to use it all the time, but it's still something you can experiment with. And then of course it gets its best benefit when you're playing a 2 ruler deck, which I think is very cool.
I think it's also neat that they're really. It feels like in Saga Cluster specifically, they're really building that. Every ruler has like an alternative resource.
Yeah,
so, like Lilius has her strength counters, and Celesta has treasures, etc., etc.
But like they're doing it better than they did in Rhea Cluster, where it's not just everyone gets some kind of counter. Like, it's
you don't like the object zone.
Yeah, no.
The object zone.
Yeah, no.
The object zone. My gems, put in the object zone. My crystals, put them in the object zone.
My emblems, put them in the
object zone.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. I'll pass on that. I like this card. This card is okay. I think this card is certainly more like a draft.
I hear the sounds of Benjamin Bargetzi just crying in the distance, saying "Guiber."
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play Guiber, sure.
Guiber was reprinted in AO1.
He was. Mm-hmm. So I like this card. I think it's neat. It's certainly becoming of a normal. Other than that,
weenies,
yeah, it's just like whoop.
It makes weenies, and then you just attack stance them, and then suddenly you've got 8/8s with quick cast. Just
Yeah, that as well as, we'll have to see what other kind of stuff we have for spirits. We did see a spirit that's released today. So I will speak this. We're going spoilers up through what was spoiled today. Particularly because like each week's spoilers has been like some kind of cycle ending with Cthulhu. And so for the sake of like not overwhelming ourselves, we're going to go through the cycle that's the duets up through the Cthulhus. So there was a card spoiled today that makes a lot of sense with this card. We're going to talk about that next week. Just
also, very important fact. This is, I think, the first chant fairy tale we've ever seen.
Correct. Fairy tale chant. Yes.
Yeah. So I think who was it? Matt said that this is like kind of fun in Dark Galaxy. And yeah, you can cast it with the mana off of Unknown Mother Goose.
You can, which is neat.
I like that.
Next up, we have our first reprint so far, Tinkerbell the Spirit, OG Tinkerbell, 0 Tinkerbell, which only has the excitement of making me wonder what other fairy tales we're going to see. That's literally the only thing that it does for me.
There are quite a bit of fairy tales in Standard now.
Yeah, and then tagged on to Reign of Light. I actually think that having this card be Tinkerbell and Reign of Light is pretty awesome. Because Reign of Light was a card that, notably Reign of Light, because it's quick cast, had some potential implications, but it always felt bad to play by itself. Like,
I've never played it.
Like, it was always a card where you were like, I don't think I want to reserve a deck slot for this card. But the fact that, like, I can have it on a Tinkerbell, which if I'm playing a Fairy Tale deck that's probably going to go wide, is going to want to make use of Reign of Light anyway, without having to lose the spell slot, a card slot. I like that. I think that's a good pairing of the two.
Here's something stupid and interesting. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
What's the implication of the fact that Tinkerbell is now a water fairy tale?
Is she? Yeah, I guess she is.
She is while in your hand.
In your hand, graveyard, deck, the places that you grab fairy tales from.
What does it matter? What does it matter that it's a water though?
I'm feeling something is happening with this. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna look into my archives in Conqueror and figure some garbage out.
Okay, you do that. And while you do that, we're gonna talk about our next card. We're going into. Cool. We're going. Oh wait, where are my reds? Where's my red stuff? Did I not save the red stuff?
I have them pulled up. If you want me to read them.
Yeah, but I want to find the image. So we'll talk about. Let's talk about blue, and then we'll cycle back around to red, and I'll figure that out.
We're going off script.
We're going off script, boys. We're talking about Cinderella. Quick cast, 1 blue, 1 colorless, 6/6. On enter, look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, then put them on top and or bottom of your opponent's deck in any order. Spell side is quick cast for 3 blue. Put up to 2 target non-Magic Stone, non-Shape Ruler entities your opponent controls on top of their owner's deck in any order. This card is awakened. Put Cinderella into play, and the awakening is 1 extra. I actually couldn't care less about the spell side. I think the Resonator side is great.
Yeah, I don't see a situation where I'd want to cast the spell for 4 rather than just cast her for 2.
Yeah,
she's so good. You heard? Remember Rachel? This is her now. Feel old yet?
Yeah, I think that's better than Rachel because you're bottom decking stuff, right? Like
you're bottom decking, or you're just top decking them in any order.
Yeah, but like forcing things to go back to the bottom to me is like the best part of it. Is like, hey, cool. These are cards, especially since we have such like reanimate kind of stuff in existence, right? The fact that she could just say no and like send stuff to bottom for me is so good.
Well, yeah, it's like you don't need to play the other blue split card now. That's the send back or Mage of Sending Back.
Yeah, so Chelina, yeah.
2 cards to do that.
Yeah, you can just do it, which I think is just really awesome. And I also think is, now that we've seen 2 back-to-back, like this is 2 back-to-back 2-cost Marvel rares with a stat line of 2-drop 6/6. Like, this is the highest rarity with a stat line that makes sense. Which is
where'd my 1-drop 4/6s with upside go, Jeremy?
Yeah, so
where'd they go?
Power creep.
I like, I've said this before on a couple other casts of it's certainly felt like we're moving back to a safer plateau of what like cost to stat line is, what cost to effect is, how much one certain card can do by itself. And like it feels good to say that 2 of the highest rarity cards are 2-drop 6/6s, and that's a comfortable stat line that we've seen for like the most of the time of the game. Kudos, I Spy. We're getting back to it.
I really like the fact that the other side is hard to cast, because it means that you're playing Cinderella for tempo when you're playing in your tempo matchups, but if you're playing in the long game, Rampaging Pumpkin Carriage is still a really, really good card.
Oh yeah.
If you have the mana to cast it.
Yes, absolutely.
You're at that point in the game where you can probably get the Awakening, get the Cinderella, mess up your opponent's plays. It's just there's so much just like intricacy to this one that isn't as it's not as specific as like the Marvel rares from EDL. Like you feel like there's like with EDL, it's like, okay, cool, I can play this now, do this, whatever. I can play this now. I can cast it as a quick cast. This one's like, hey, maybe I should hold on to this for another turn because then I can get this with another thing, as long as I know that I'm safe to do it. There's so much decision tree making with the card in this kind of style, and I love that.
Real quick, so go ahead.
Even the decision making comes into the deck because, like you said, because Kiki cannot work in any other deck other than Celeste. Even though he's our god and savior.
Kiki's spell side can't work in any deck other than Celesta. I mean, Kiki's still a Cheshire Cat. Kiki's still a Cheshire Cat, but like
Kiki's a Cheshire Cat. It's also a beast. Very important for that Mirage OTK.
Right. But it's also one of the things where I could see you playing this in any blue deck, any deck that has blue, because it's
oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. Like even if it's not a 6H deck, and you're playing like, is your base blue? 4 Cinderellas. Like, please enjoy. Quickly to chug that Estes, how does Vampire Staff work with dual cards? You will total up the cost of both halves for things like that. It counts everything. So for Vampire Staff, this would be 4 damage. It's particularly going off of your, point. Now we'll go back to red. Don't worry, we'll go back to red after we hit the blue stuff here. Next up, we have our next Duet of Water, our first quick cast duet. 2 blue and 1. Choose 1 as usual. Draw a card up to 2 target resonators to their owner's hands. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to J/resonators you control until end of turn. I really wish that was draw 2 cards.
Yeah, this one feels like the weakest of the duets.
Yeah, like
it's also expensive.
If it had been draw 2 cards, I would have been significantly more happy with this card. But I agree that it's like the weakest.
Return 2 isn't terrible though. It's still like I want to combo that with Chelina, honestly.
Yeah, well, it won't. The problem is it won't combo with Chelina to put stuff back in their deck, because Chelina only works.
If it goes into their hand.
Chelina only deals with like effects, not spells.
Really? I thought
it was ruled. It was ruled that Chelina is only like monster effects.
What?
So.
Then how does it work with send back?
It does. Send back puts it back into their hand.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, Chelina immediately dropped in playability as soon as that ruling was made.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah, I think if you had, like Matt Seymour's talking about in the chat, if you had made this 2 cost or bumped up the drawing to 2 cards, I think this card becomes immediately more playable. That being said, if you're playing it in like a Mood Start, Feathsing kind of like combo, like control deck, this, you're kind of casting it for 2 because of Feasting. And the one thing to note is that the way it's technically ruled with choosing modes then paying cost is you declare casting the spell, choose modes, then pay cost. So you can have Feasting recovered, use her to choose a second mode, and then tap Feasting to produce Void for this card. So it's not bad.
It's got niche capabilities.
It's just not like woo, like
it's like woo.
Yeah. I'd give it like a 4. Or give it like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
It's a normal, whatever.
Yeah. And then we don't even care about the fog. Like, we don't, whatever.
Right. If only we didn't have something that was out 2 sets ago that
Does
did
the
it for
same.
one.
Yeah, right. Next, so 3-eyed fortune teller, 2 blue, 6/6. Play with the top card of your deck revealed. As long as the top card of your deck revealed this way is a chant, you may pay it by paying its cost. I love these kinds of effects.
I adore this card so much.
Hey, I heard you like Lantern of Insight and Future Sight. So here you go, control players.
Yeah, also, it's like Laplacia from literally set 2 of Force of Will. Welcome back. Glad to know that you're now a cute anime girl. Like, okay.
Very important distinction is that this one only forces you to reveal it, so you don't get the information on your opponent. But that's when Cinderella comes in, so now everybody knows everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this idea. It really makes me feel like we might be seeing some kind of like a blue stun, where like or like you said, like an insight thing, where like the whole idea is you're trying to amass so much card advantage while also controlling your opponent's like actual play lines by what they can draw into. And like, you know, we've already have things like the guard that only lets you play one thing per turn. So like that idea of like a lockdown stun deck where like you can only cast one thing per turn and I know what all your options are, so they're all bad. Sorry. Like
it's like death and taxes, but just taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Death and taxes, but just the taxes. I really like that flavor is coming back. I've been missing something like that from Force of Will for a while. Next up, we have the split card, which is the double reprint of Purple Mist and Moon Incarnation. Purple Mist is a 5-cost flying fantasy dragon who cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. That means neither me nor you can target it for anything. And then search your deck, the Moon Incarnation, search your deck for a Moon Edition, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. If you awaken it for 2, you can put that Moon Edition from your hand, a Moon Edition from your hand, into the field. I really need to know what moons we have before I can judge this card.
Black Moon.
Pitch Black. Yeah, Pitch Black Moon. There we go. Nice.
That's.
What do you mean? Like that's not a bad card. Like
it's not a good card.
It's
not a bad card.
I would have to imagine that we probably have some kind of moons coming from somewhere.
Yeah, Kaguya always comes with a moon.
Yeah, so we'll have to see exactly what comes of it. Purple Mist.
Let's go.
Purple Mist is so expensive.
Yeah, for what he does,
yeah.
5 is a lot.
The card was legitimately only ever used with John the Arc the Awakened Purity back in
or Shion sometimes.
No, Jeremy.
Sometimes I saw people play this with Shion.
You had Celestial Wing Seraph back then, Jeremy.
I didn't say it was the best choice for Shion. I just said that it was played with Shion. 5 is just a little bit like wait, I think the Resonator side of this is the side that I've stopped paying attention to. The spell side of this is the one that I need to see the moons to determine where it flies. Like it could be fantastic, but I need to see what moons exist.
I just don't know if you would ever want it. It's got to be a moon that costs 4 or more as an addition in order for this to be remotely
correct.
Feel right.
Okay. Mike, I need you to peer into your Wanderer knowledge. What is the name of that Cthulhu Black Moon edition?
Black Moon.
Is it just called Black Moon?
It's just called Black Moon.
Okay, yeah. Let's get that Black Moon reprint, and then we play it in Wolfgang and gas.
That is... You can't play the Moon Incarnation in Wolfgang, though.
Because it's a blue card.
Oh God, you're right.
They thought of everything to make sure that we can't meme hard enough.
Okay, so we play it in other in other decks, so they can kind of pretend to be the Cthulhu deck.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You got it.
Play it in TSW to get it out, and then you just get Cthulhu's every turn.
There you go. Now, let's go ahead and go to the red. We're going back to red. We got Snow White, the red apple of the red apple.
Nice job, Jeremy. You found him.
I did. 1 red, quick cast, first strike, 0/0, who enters the field with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total damage dealt by sources you controlled this turn, times by 100. And then The spell side is 2 drop quick cast. He deals X damage divided as you choose to any number of target J/resonators your opponent controls, where X is the total damage that was dealt to you this turn. If X is 1,000 or more, you get to put the resonator side into play. First off, so cool to see this artwork style come back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, I think the resonator, I think the ruler Snow White/Bloody Snow White is like the only card in Val's history to have this kind of style of artwork. Like, not even her support suite in like the old era had the same art style as this. So like that hard callback is great.
I don't know what else Kono Takashi actually did, because their art style's very distinct and like super watercolory.
Yeah,
very,
I love it.
Blotchy and in your face, beautiful, gorgeous. Also, the name Apple Avenger is incredible. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, for sure. I really like this card for both its resonator side and the silliness that you can do to make this card huge, and its spell side for being such a nice cross counter revenge kind of card.
There's a lot of revenge mechanic in Snow White and her support suite, which is really interesting because I don't think we've seen something like that since Crime and Punishment got reprinted.
Yeah. Nope.
Like, that's just cool to me.
Just because we were talking about it, so Kono did a lot of Arla's support.
Yep, that's that art style. Yep, that makes sense.
But there is something I'm pretty sure I know how this works, but just to clarify for the audience, there is a certain card that got reprinted coming up that stops enter abilities. This would not stop her from entering.
Correct, because she says this card enters with, it's not enter trigger. If it was an enter trigger, she would die as soon as she hits the field, regardless of if Abdul existed. She'd have to be a 1/1 in order to justify it. Yeah, whatever. I do want to note that there's a very interesting playline that you can take with the Lilius pedal that we'll talk about later, because it's X is the amount of damage dealt by sources you control. So if the board is wide enough and you cast Lilius's pedal spells and then cast this, you can just be like, I have a 10k for 1. Please. We'll get to that. Very silly. I love it.
So cute.
Next up, we have our Duet of Fire, 2 red, 800 damage to target player or J resonator. Discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. J resonators you control gain +4, and Pierce until end of turn. Oof.
Remember Force of Will was phasing out Pierce?
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't necessarily care about the Pierce as much as I do the fact that it's Pierce +400, because we already have Road for 1 red that just permanently gives your guys Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
So like the
Dragonoid Claw.
Or Dragonoid Claw. The +4 is the part that is the concerning part of that spell to me. But I'm glad it's just on the front, right? So it has just as much likelihood to backfire in your face, because if I had answers to your guys before they were big attackers, I probably have answers to your guys after they're big attackers.
Jeremy, let's be real. This card will not be used for this effect because attack stance still exists.
Also attack stance. Yeah.
I feel like most people are going to try to deal 800 damage to something and then get gas back into their hand.
Yes. I having a red immediate hand refill rather than having to rely on something like Guinevere, I think is very nice. I think is a very cool effect that will probably find its way, even if it's just the discard your hand, draw 3 cards, or like cast this before calling stone so that you can also get 8 burn damage at your opponent's face.
The fact that this is a very aggressively designed card being a 2 cost is really cool in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because 800 damage, discard your hand, draw 3 cards is gas. Like, that is just boosh! And if you have an empty hand, whoosh!
Like, I think Lilius would play this card. Tap Shrine before recovery, draw for turn, recover, cast this, burn them for 10, flip Lilius, burn, go your face. Like, we saw it on Saturday, I believe it was Matt, one of the guys from Yotes Gaming, play like a pure burn Lilius, whereas like I'm not gonna play resonators that I don't care. Like I'm just gonna throw stuff at your. I'm just gonna throw. It played. Yeah, it played Fox. Like it played Arlie, and it was just Arlie, Togusa, and like throwing things at your face. And I'm like, this card is absolutely that. Like great.
Yep.
I think very, very cool. Glad it doesn't have quick cast.
Correct. Oh my god, imagine.
So all of the duets have felt very, very fun, very, very cool, applicable outside of just sages, and very well designed.
Balanced.
Very like well designed in their color.
Yes,
These are
agreed.
Color identity cards.
Yes, agreed. Next up we have Desperate Aid, 1 red. Quick cast until end of turn. The next damage that would be dealt to target J/Resonator you control is instead dealt to you. Recover a ruler you control. I really like this as being support for Snow White. I also really like this as being like a way for red to protect itself while like not really being able to protect itself.
Can we just talk about this artwork? This dwarf guy with the flaming horns on the Viking helmet and the braided sides of the beard. This is like the coolest looking. Like, I don't think Force has done a card this like high fantasy mixed with Force of Will flavor in such a long time. And the fact that it says Snow White's Fire Dwarves makes me think that that's going to be a card, and I'm hyped to see what that thing does.
Yeah, the 7 Dwarves were always a fun card when they got printed in various iterations.
Oh yeah.
And now we have red 7 dwarves kind of coming back. We had them before where they like
had Bloodlust.
Yeah, they had Bloodlust, but yeah, no, this is very
that was
cool.
mechanic. Me too.
Poof. Next up, we have the weakest of the reprint dual cards. Salamander, Spirit of Fire, 1 red, 3/1. Banish this card, deals damage equal to its attack to target J/Resonator. Or Ghost Flame for 1 red, deals 300 damage to target player or Resonator. You can pay 3 to put this card from your graveyard into your hand. Cool, that was a cool card. Let's go on.
I was always in the impression back in the day that Ghost Flame was a chant instant. Am I wrong?
It has quick cast.
No, it does not. This does not.
Yeah, Ghost Flame was
Ghost Flame was a chant. No, not a chant instant.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So we're not even going to talk about that card. It's literally unplayable. It's unfortunate. Oh no, Mike disconnected and we look really weird on camera. Mike, come back. Thank you.
We're back.
Next up we have Welser, Master of the Six Ages.
Welser hurt me so much that it forced me off the stream for a
second.
I guess people have opinions on Welser, huh?
2 green, 6/6 quick cast. Return target spell to its owner's hand. If this card was put into the field by the effects of its last lecture part, remove this card from the game and put 2 +1/+1 counters on each J/ruler you control. And then 1 green, recover a ruler you control. If it's a 6 sage, put this card into play on its Welser side instead of putting it into the graveyard's owner's graveyard. So before I let Mike go crazy on this card, 1, this card has 2 identities in my brain. 1, it is the slow the hell down Rezard card, and 2, it is not a cancel in the traditional sense of what you want a cancel to be. And Mike is going to actually probably be able to carry over that really well when he talks about what he thinks about this card. Mike, go for it.
Negative card advantage. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
This card's, like, in my opinion, as good as Severing Winds was when it was revealed in Echoes of the New World. Not when it was with Otherworld Dreams, but on its own. Probably about that same power level. Is it close to Kaguya? No. Is it really, really strong? This thing's insanely strong. Final Breeze on legs is nutty.
Final Breeze, a card that rarely saw any play.
Don't talk to me like that, Jeremy. I popularized that card. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. And how many top 8s did it show up in, Mike? The sideboards of 2 decks in 1 tournament?
No, the one that I was in. It was in my main board.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
At the height of Sherry format. Anyway, back to this. I'm sorry, Jeremy. There was a card that got sideboard play and saw some play, and they slapped a 6/6 onto it.
But here's
Let me go back to this.
Go ahead, and then we're gonna have a fight about this, and I'm about it.
Okay, we will have a fight about this. Anyway, we're fighting now. It's okay. So, Welser is not a cancel. We all know that.
That's correct.
Welser is very good against people that are trying to play on curve. Because if you try to play on curve, Welser steals your tempo away, gives you a 2/2 body.
Rezard, or tries to play like in advance of their curve, like Rezard.
Yep. So there's that. Also, the problem that I see with that, and the reason that I think this card is quite as strong as it is, and is going to be as it's not going to be like make a tier 0 deck out of it, because the card's just like not a staple piece of a certain combo deck, but it's going to be really strong. Like, I mean, insanely strong. At its worst case scenario, it is a 1 mana cancel a card.
It's not, though. You go negative card advantage, you don't even get the body, and they can recast the card later. It's not.
Fine.
It's not.
That's fine, though. The problem is that Force Will is an extremely tempo-heavy game right now. It is so intensely tempo-heavy that I think the ability to use 1 will to make sure that one thing that your opponent's trying to do gets stopped in terms of their combo play is enough to set them off for the rest of the game. And I think that this, being as strong as it is, obviously there's a lot of comparisons you can make with this card to Wall of Wind, in a sense. Wall of Wind was very different in the fact that if you got them to a point where you could force them to have no will, it cancels the card, sends it to the graveyard. This thing, if you have them at a point with no will, you cancel the card, put it back in their hand, and if they can't play out their next turn properly, you just go off at that point. So there's a lot of things that this card does that's just like that. It's very hard to describe it, but stealing a turn in Force of Will is so insanely good right now that I think this card is probably a little overbearing until the game slows down.
If we didn't have a guaranteed stone every single turn, I would agree with you. Naoki, I'm going to have you go first before I give my counterpoint to Mike.
I was just going to say, the only situation where I see the hypothetical that Mike is presenting actually happening is if they play their Rhea, they put something into grave, and then you Welser their part of true power. I think that's the only situation that we have in this meta where you go, no, you don't get to play. But other than that, it's just like, sure, okay.
So I'm going to lay down a couple scenarios that are going to be very common in this next meta that I think counter Mike's point. And that is, we have an amazing early game discard, like turn 1 discard. And also, if you're playing in a deck that you're stealing your opponent's step, like the earlier you play this, the less you actually get to follow up on it, because you're like also spending resources. And the later you play this, you're spending resources to not put bodies on board and to go minus in card advantage. And the second part is, the longer you wait to play this, the more likely it is that your opponent will literally just play the card again. Specifically, I'll talk about in the sense of discard. Mike, I'm going to put you on the draw. You have a green energize. I am a dark deck. Okay?
Okay.
You have a Welser in your hand.
That's correct.
I'm going to play turn 1 smile.
All right, cool. Here are my 3 Welsers.
Yeah, cool. I will take one, gladly. Great. Awesome. Now I know that there are 2 more Welsers, and I will proceed to play 1-drops for the rest of the hand until those Welsers are gone and they're no longer a problem. You also are not putting any pressure on me because they don't do jack shit. Secondly, let's say you decide to only have 1 Welser in hand. You're either going to not use your Energize and let me then take the Welser, great, or you're going to cast the Welser, lose the body, put the cancel back in my hand, or the discard back in my hand, at which point I will play it again next turn. Great! You did a lot. I think that there is so much early cheap stuff that will make Welser, the fact that Welser is forced to be sacrificed of the body, awkward enough that you're not really actually doing anything. And I'm still getting to keep the card. And that there is enough late game stuff that's cheap enough that if you I'll just recast it. Like, I'll literally just recast the card. Don't get me wrong, I think this card is very good. This card is very much worthy of being a Marvel. Don't let my fight with Mike confuse you. I think this card is very much worthy of being a Marvel. I do not put it on the same tier as Severing Winds. I at all. I think I would put this about on the same power as like Fairer Spell. But
Fair Spell's like here,
but
like here, but yeah.
But also a little bit below because it's significantly easier to play around, and it's, I think, in the situations where this card would see the most application of like truly being able to take value is the time when you actually have the most ways to play around it. I am more than happy to be wrong. I dropped some hot takes last week. I'm dropping some hot takes this week. There you go.
Very excited for you to be wrong, Jeremy.
I'm excited too. Let's go.
I think I fall in the dead center of this.
Beautiful.
Which is
That's
perfect.
what we want.
So like, I think this is a fantastic counterspell, but it's not degenerate. So it's like, it is totally going to see play. People are going to play 4 of, and if they're in a hard green deck. But I don't think this is going to be nearly as oppressive as Severing Winds or Otherworld Dreams in a vacuum.
Sure. Yes. I would second that statement. Yes.
Nothing's ever going to beat Severing Winds in Otherworld, but like, I think Otherworld on its own is actually a great example of the power level of this card.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like an Otherworld without Severing existing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair comparison. Yes, I would compare.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement for sure. So overall, though,
never forget how insanely strong Otherworld Dreams was, though. That card gave you pretty much 0. No, it technically gave you like 1-for-1 card advantage, but didn't let you go plus on will. I think this one letting you go plus on will is going to be real. Like, that's probably going to be the biggest thing that's strong about it. And I think that's going to be very good.
I can agree with you on that. This card will. I think the best part about this card is that it allows you to naturally get will advantage, which in certain matchups will have a good impact.
It lets you get will advantage and it steals tempo, and that's big.
Yeah,
that is huge. I love cards. Cards of steal tempo have always been crazy good in this game. Kaguya is probably the best example I can even think of off the top of my head. It's not the same level that Kaguya was with stealing tempo, but it's definitely reminiscent of it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's going on in people's heads.
The number of times that I've seen Matt Seymour talk about this Law of Silence, it's too many. Buddy, it's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. Law of Silence isn't real. It can't hurt you anymore.
But Dance of Spirits is.
Law of Silence and White.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Law of Silence and White isn't real. It can't hurt you. Law of Silence and White.
And I took that personally. Moving on into the more green cards, we have, speaking of cancels,
good counterspell.
The Duet of Winds. 2 green, 2 quick cast. Choose 1 usual stuff. Recover up to 2 magic stones you control. Cancel target spell, or put target non-magic stone card from your graveyard into your hand. I like this card a lot. I like the fact that it has, like, it's weird that it has like this typical cancel cost of being a 2-cost cancel, but it actually requires a, like, it can become a 2-cost cancel technically.
It's a barrier to entry. You must
right.
be this tall to ride.
Right, exact. But it has a barrier to entry if you must be this tall to ride. That's a good way of putting it. I like that design space. I like Wind being able to bring stuff back. Why did I Spy make the ship artwork? Like, this artwork is just like, oh, hey, by the way, did you think that Feasting and Zero liked each other? Cool, well, they certainly do.
Where is Zero?
They raised that kid together, like,
yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Our favorite game moms are having a great time right now. It's fine.
Hey, speaking of the kid and her 2 moms, man, this card's silly with Kaguya.
Yeah. So, as
heard you like counter spells.
Yeah, free counter spells. Yeah, with Kaguya. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say about that.
I mean, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but there is the infinite.
So yeah, we are going to talk about this mainly from the perspective of I don't think you have to worry about it. Like it actually,
It's not a big deal.
it's not a big deal, and it's certainly not something that's actually going to probably be winning the opponent the game. If they
I
manage.
hope it does. I'll try it.
I mean, like, yeah, try it out for sure. So with a Kaguya on the board and this spell and another copy of this spell in the grave, if those are your only two cancels, the idea is have both your rulers recovered, produce 4 will off of 2 stones, get all 3 modes to cancel the spell, recover the 2 stones, get the other copy of this spell back to your hand, repeat ad infinitum. The reason why this is not concerning is that you can't cancel with the copy that's in the grave while this thing's on the chase. So just finding the good spots to be able to kill the Kaguya in response, or you gotta like very easy ways to interact with it, or just like flashing a Morning Angel and RFG the copy of the card. Like there's so many things that you could do. But it's silly.
Just kill them turn 2.
Or do that. But it's silly. But it's silly that this exists. So.
Yep. I think
But
I think the barrier to entry is definitely the biggest thing that's going to hold this
Yeah.
thing back. Yeah.
Agreed. Which is good. Good decision. Good decision. Next up we have, hold on, make sure I click the right image. We have
Hidden history.
Yes, Hidden History. Cool. Moving on to the next card.
History missing from the last set.
Yeah, the Hidden History, the Magic Stone War, 1-drop edition, enter, draw a card, rest to recover J/ruler you control to recover a Fairy Tale Resonator, total cost 1 or less from your graveyard into your hand. Only thing I have to say about this is that it suddenly means we're getting a lot more Fairy Tale Tribal support, and I'm for it.
Hey, you can play that spirit chant.
Yeah.
No, it's a Fairy Tale Resonator. You can't do it.
No, okay, card's bad. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
No. Do you know what I'm gonna do though? We're gonna do the play where we constantly bring back the Shadow Axe over and over again.
Oh yeah, that is.
Because that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's true. Next up we have Little Red Fairy Tale of Air, with a spell side that means nothing. Card gains +100 for each wind magic stone you control, and gains swiftness as long as you control a basic wind stone.
Little Red is back. Little Red is back.
The GP promo, right? Because no one's ever gonna play Wind of the Gods.
You can't use in New Frontiers. You can't use the GP promo. But here's what I'm gonna do if I ever play this in an event. Not that I play at events anymore. I will have the GP promos in my deck box, and I will put this onto the field and then put the GP promo on top of it and be like, okay. Because I'm never playing Wind of God.
We could play 8 Little Red Fairy Tale of Air.
Yeah, Green Grim just got real happy.
Okay, no. Green Book of Despair. We're going back to the real jank.
That's love it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
okay.
No, for sure.
This card's hype. I'm so excited.
I love that I can play 8 Little Reds now.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, let's go to the black cards. We got my favorite boy, Lilius Petal. 1 black, quick cast, enter, destroy target damaged J/Resonator. If he was put into the field by his effect, he comes into... Oh, it is an enter effect. When this card is put into the field by its effect, trigger, put 9 +1/+1 counters on this card. And the spell is 3 cost. This card deals 900 damage to each J/Resonator. If you control 3 or more magic stones with different names, put this card's Lilius Petal part into the field instead of putting this card into the owner's graveyard. Super flavorful. I love that it punishes yourself. It's very indicative of what we're going to see from Gruberlus's support. Any card that has Lilius Petal on it, I love this card.
And the fact that it does things a multiple of 9s, because it's the 9-tailed fox.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's also talk about the fact that this thing just like kills damaged J resonators, so you can just molest something. I'm not gonna say that word again.
Molest.
It's going to molest something.
Lethal Arrow was a thing.
Yeah,
Lethal Arrow was a thing. Yeah.
Lethal Arrow on a body. Let's go.
We have Demon Flame still.
I really do wish that he entered with the 9 counters instead of having a trigger. That's like my only thing that I would fix about this card. It, however, is not enough to make me not like this card. I absolutely adore this card.
Yeah, no,
It's also 2 separate enter effects, so like if your opponent tries to cancel one of the enter effects, they still have to deal with the other. Like,
Yeah, I like it.
it's cute.
Or they just play another card coming up.
Yeah. Like this one. We'll go to the duet next. A Duet of Darkness. 2 black. Target resonator from your graveyard into your hand. Your opponent discards a card. Resonators your opponent control gain -2/-2 for each different name among all magic stones you control until end of turn. This, in my opinion, is absolutely the most niche of the duets.
I was about to say the worst one, but niche is a nicer way to put that. Yeah.
Because I think this card is really only playable in a heavily favoring Gruus Ballesta Six Sages list. We have talked about it before. Paul and I actually discussed this, that provided there is a darkness source for the Six Sages and a darkness source that's playable outside of Wolfgang, because we imagine there would be at least those stones, you can technically play 10 different dark generating stones for Gruus Ballesta.
Yeah, I can see it.
Because so in New Frontiers, so you could literally have 10 different stones that always produce black, and then produce
tell
other
me
stuff.
one of them is not Rulers of Moria.
One of them is not Rulers of Moria. 5 dual stone. Well, right, 5 dual stones. Basic Darkness Stone, Ataraktia's Memoria, Black Moon Ray, and then the Black Moon Memoria, and then the 2 stones from this set, if there exist. 10 stones. So it is. That's why
one of them could be Mikage Stone.
But also Mikage Stone. Like, you don't even need the basic black stone. So, like I said, waiting to see what stones come out. But it is very possible that you can have 10 base black different named stones for a Gruus Ballesta deck, at which point in time this card becomes a potential 2-cost neg 20, which is very great. Like, huh.
Yeah, but how often
also, quick shout out to Matt Seymour. You cannot discard 2 cards with this card. It has to be separate
ones. Well, I mean, even at 5 stones, this is a 10/10 board, like a -10/-10. It like, again, much like the blue one, if this said opponent discards 2 cards as one of its modes, or if it said J/Resonators your opponent controls gain -/, this card would be significantly better. That being said, it is in the same vein of the Moonstart one, of being like on the weaker end.
Yeah.
I'd say this one actually might be the weakest in my opinion, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable saying that.
The only reason why I wouldn't is just because it fits so well into Gruus Ballesta's game plan.
Sure.
So that's literally the only reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a very narrow application.
Next up, we have Secluded Fox Village. 1-drop, enter, destroy target resonator with total cost 2 or less. Rest of recovered J/ruler you control. Target resonator you control gains Bane until end of turn.
I mean, that's some value right there.
That card's so cute.
Yeah, that card is very cool. I like everything about it. I obviously, I'm trying not to evaluate this card from the perspective of, oh, it's another thing for Sigurd to grab. I'm just like trying to not think in that headspace. Even outside of that headspace, this is a very cool card.
This isn't even the best thing Sigurd can grab, so whatever.
Right. So I think this is a card that, based on the kind of deck you're playing, is definitely something you could play. And like, Bane has shown itself to be a very powerful keyword. So especially since Gruus Ballesta's tap effect isn't great, at least so far, potentially using Gruus Ballesta for this instead, very cool.
And there's even Six Sages who don't have tap abilities, so
they all have. No, she does. It's the +2/+2. But like on her ruler side, yep.
So basically, it's like having nothing.
Right, exactly. So like you can just give the thing Bane instead. Like if you're already gonna be trading with a thing, if you need the +2/+2 to not die, why don't you just make it so they both die? There you go.
Yeah, you would
Easy.
just use Group Alessa for this.
Yeah. Neat. But then I think the real MVP of probably the best of the reprints,
Yes.
is good old Abdul Alhazred, Poet of Badness, Vingolf 3, Abdul. Resonators entering the field under your opponent's control don't cause their own abilities to trigger. Connected to Dark Pulse, 4 cost, quick cast, destroy all resonators of total cost 2 or less. I like Dark Pulse in the same way of Rain of Light, of like Dark Pulse was a card that it's like, man, this could actually be pretty good, but I don't want to waste a card slot on it. Like having access to Dark Pulse while also wanting to be playing Abdul is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Abdul himself is very nice, and I'm glad to have it back.
I would be 100% fine with just Abdul on his own, but they decided to give him a little extra treat.
Like the idea of playing, we talked about it like a Death and Taxes or like a stun, like hard control. Like just imagine the world of turn 1, like turn 1 hideout, turn 2 Abdul. Like
turn 3 Tsukiyomi Noble to get the full Death and Taxes experience.
Yeah, just like
give me back Esper taxes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm about that life 100%. And I think it's great to have him back.
Something interesting about this. First of all, I think Abdul is probably a lot worse right now, considering the fact that most of the metagame is non-enter abilities.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of Regalia triggers that do a lot going forward right now. But going into like after Alice Origin rotates out, he's going to be very, very like a legitimate board state threat. But I really love the fact that they paired him up with Dark Pulse in particular. Because something interesting about Abdul is he's really good against people that are going tall on their boards, like a big thing with the heavy enter effect, or playing things out more and more in the mid-range style. And then they pair him up with Dark Pulse that just punishes swarm decks, and it's like it's a very harmonious pair.
Right, I would agree
really
wholeheartedly.
like
Yeah, like I said, it's that idea of like Dark Pulse is a card that complements Abdul very, very well, without having to be like, oh, I don't want to waste a card slot for Dark Pulse, which is very much this. So, yeah, certainly Resart is a lot of enter effects. That's not wrong, but Resart also has a force you to sack something.
I was about to type that in. Death Scythe is literally just Death Scythe is that. Moan of the Dead is that. I don't think there's anything like
Suya.
Like,
there's a lot of stuff that does it.
Everything does it.
I'm finding myself more and more considering these cards in the context of Conqueror, or not Conqueror, in the context of cluster format. Particularly because we've had so many conversations about like where design approach to set is going. And so, like Mike said, I think outside of Alice Origins cluster, when that does rotate out, I think that based on the meta, and if you were playing it like a tier 1.5, like if your locals is like a bunch of people who enjoy playing tier 1.5 stuff, and like not trying to like pump the gas for maximum efficiency, this card is absolutely a card that you will play and have a good time with. On the high end competitive scene, like Mike said, the high end competitive decks aren't necessarily using a lot of enters or would have a good way to deal with Abdul right now. But then thinking forward to the future, when that stuff is gone, Abdul, I think, will have a very nice place, and it will be nice to have this like answer to enters that we've kind of been waiting for so long.
Yep.
I kind of see this kind of hampering a lot of the resonator-based Lilius decks, because like Ground Splitter Bunny, Fox doesn't trigger. It's like kind of puts a damper on theirs, but I don't see a lot of people playing that specific build, so yeah, probably will change once Alice Origin rotates, like you said.
Oh, I just realized I'd never grabbed the Cthulhu cards from this week because I did my Cthulhu cards, so I never saved them.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live because they are good. These are fun.
I'm really excited for when Alice Origins rotates out, honestly, because despite it being a lot of familiar faces and some fun cards added in there, the overall feeling of the format was very linear. This format seems very like these sets so far seem very open ended. So I'm much more excited for deck building going forward with that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Cthulhu's. Let's start with deep ones. So deep ones, 1 blue.
No, deeper ones.
Deeper ones. 1 blue.
They could have made this blue green.
1 blue, 1 green. You may have any number of copies of this card in your deck. It is a 4/6 with Pierce. Gains +2/+2 for each Cthulhu in your graveyard, and replaces itself on enter. It's cool to see that space of multiple per deck come back. The problem is we have a card called The Battle Comes to an End. So like that's a little unfortunate. I'll put out a challenge right now of like let's high scoreboard of like who in a tournament can remove the most deeper ones. Like, what's your high score for number of cards removed?
I'm honestly curious how many of these you would actually run.
Right.
0, I think, is the correct number.
Because
let's forego this card's not great, but if you were dead set on playing it, how many would you actually play? Like
probably like 10.
10, yeah.
Probably like 10.
Would be the maximum limit.
Yeah, because you just Raya them into the grave, and then you just play the next one, search it. Just like there's you Mona the Dead them so that they turn into
there's a lot of there's a lot of cool design space for it. The problem is we have a very nice answer that removes all of them, and you feel very, very bad.
And also, it's a 2-will 4/6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagining by the time you play it, it's probably at least a 2-will 6/8.
Jeremy, you're not playing this on turn 2 as a 2-mana 4/6.
I said there's probably a real chance that you're playing it on 2 as a 2-mana 6/8.
Yeah, because you play Raya turn 1.
Yeah, not great. Not great.
You should tell it's my 8/10 wolf that I just put on the board that got printed last set.
Yeah, no. Next up we have Haster, Messenger of Madness. 1 red, 1 blue. Quick cast 6/7. Cancel target spell or ability that targets a Cthulhu you control. If this card was awakened, you may copy the target before canceling it instead. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Magic Rebound.
So
here's the coolest card.
Here's a cute thing. This doesn't work with just like Magic Rebound. It doesn't work with things that have multiple modes.
Yes.
It doesn't work with things that have multiple targets.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as the other mode doesn't target something, you can actually copy it, I think.
Wait, I'm pretty sure. No, it doesn't say that targets a Cthulhu and only one Cthulhu you control.
That targets a Cthulhu you control. It literally says a Cthulhu you control. I'm pretty sure the ruling will be the exact same as Magic Rebound. However,
it's going to be exactly the same.
However, the cuteness of this is like, say your opponent is playing a dual mode spell where one of the modes targets a thing that you control and the other mode is like, draw a card. Cool, cancel, bounce your thing, I'll draw a card, thanks. Because it's all one spell, so you can copy it.
God, I love this card so much.
I also very much love this card, and I think that it's very well designed to be like, this is a Cthulhu card. Like, you know, it's not everybody can use it. This is a very cool design space that has potential for very good impact, especially since the Awakening can be paid for with Madness. Yep. Right? That to me is what makes it significantly better. Yeah.
I don't know, a 6/7 red blue quick. I think the last time we saw a red blue quick cast card was like Vin 3 Allosaurus.
Yeah.
That did something neat like this. Like, this thing's so rad to me.
Yeah,
I really love this card's design space. I don't think it's gonna be that great, but I'm gonna play it anyway.
I would play at like 2 in a Wolfgang deck.
Yeah, based on how you're building Wolfgang, I could absolutely.
I played in Reflector Frame. It's red blue. I don't know.
Like,
how many Cthulhus are you playing?
Listen, we'll make the meta happen.
Okay, moving on. We have Shub. I'm just gonna call it Shub.
Did you get the split card?
I did. I grabbed it. We'll hit that one last. We have Shub, Gatekeeper of Outer Worlds. 1 red, 1 black. If a 4/4. If a fire chant you control would deal damage, it deals that much plus 400 instead. darkness chance you control gain drain. Cough, cough, Lilius petal. Enter, search your deck for a Cthulhu, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. If this card was awakened, produce red, black, then the awakening cost is 1 red. So this is probably...
Cthulhu was bad.
Yeah, this card is a win con by itself.
Yes.
Because of
OTK.
shove into shove into shove into shove into Yogg-Sothoth. However,
Madness.
It is easily preventable and easily punishable. So it's one of those things where it's important for you to be aware of it. It will not be very hard for you to answer it, provided you're aware of it. And if you're the person playing it, it has... I almost kind of feel like it's the same kind of vibe as, like, the Bet It All on Black deck. Where, like, it either wins or it loses, like, on that turn. Like, we're going for it. It's the same way of, like, Melgus, right? Like, Melgus is a very high rolly, like, sometimes you just win with Melgus, but if you don't just win, you probably lost. The only difference being for this is that it's such an ever-present threat, because it literally just needs 1 card in hand to, like, go off, which means that you just have to be very careful against Wolfgang. Which I'm fine with. Like, forcing a deck to have to be careful against you is good, especially since Wolfgang's stuff appears to be majorly on his own turn. So, like, I'm okay with that being the design space for it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think every Wolfgang deck should go for this, but it is always like that silver bullet they have in their pocket.
Yeah, of like, hey, you tapped out.
You tapped out. You don't have any. You have 1 blocker out. Okay, game.
Yeah, for sure.
Shove.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things of like you have to be careful.
Smart.
Yeah, you have to be careful with it. If you're prepared for it, it shouldn't beat you. But if you're not prepared for it, it will beat you. Which it is fine. Like, that can exist. Those have existed before in Force of Will. They can exist again. This is certainly, as far as OTKs go, this is certainly less threatening than some of the most oppressive, like, significantly less threatening than some of the most oppressive ones we've ever had. Also, Abdul just tells this to stop. Like, stop it. And then our last card here, which actually has an interesting interaction with Shub, which we'll talk about, is good old Satan. Satan's Phantasmal Body. 1 red, 1 black. Enter, remove 2 madness counters from your ruler. As far as we know so far, this has been the only way to deal with the madness counters. While you are searching your deck, you may play this card from your deck by paying its cost. You may play either part of this alternative card. And the alternative side is Flame of the Outer World. Welcome back.
The spicy replay.
I've missed you. Flame of the Outer World, you deal 800 damage to target J/Resonator. Players cannot chase to this card. Neither player, by the way. So until this is off
I
the
hear
chase...
the faint rumblings of Team Outer World in the distance.
I don't.
Good.
So one thing that's interesting to note here is that the wording on this card is different, particularly with its interaction. It's very clearly designed to kind of interact with Shub. One thing, because Shub is like one of the few ways that we've seen so far for them to be able to search.
Or Pitch Black Moon.
Or Pitch Black, yeah, stuff like that. So one thing to note here is that Shub says search then produce. And so you have to have the will available before Shub's enter effect resolves to then be able to cast. So, like, it'll cost you 4. Shub will not be able to pay for Satan because of the way it's worded. That's just an important thing for people to know. It will, however, make Flames of the Outer World, if you have the will for it, a potential searchable 12 damage to a Jape Ruler unchaseable, gain 12 life.
Yes.
That is very relevant.
Or if you start pulling at the Shubs and you just keep going, then you deal 20.
Yeah. And it's even more, right? I don't think there's too much to say about this other than like I think it's great, and I really enjoyed seeing Flames of the Outer Worlds come back in the design space.
Here's something really interesting that I love about the fact that Flame of Outer Worlds is coming back now. The J rulers in this set have stats very reminiscent of how they were in Grim Cluster, back when Flame of Outer World was the best way to kill a J ruler. So it's just
except for Group
oozing
Spalesta.
with
Except for Group Spalesta.
whatever, it's fine. But it's just like oozing.
Yeah.
Oozing that nostalgic feeling with a little bit of that extra hype that we get from current Force of Will. It feels like it's hitting right in both the sweet spots for the new players and for the returning players at this point, which I really love.
Yeah, this isn't a like design aspect, but I'm just kind of looking at the card art, and I've been looking at this Welser banner behind Mike. They look very similar.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's like.
I have that same banner. That's right.
I think I have it as well.
There.
Oh wait, no, I have Alisaurus.
Well, sir. And there's
Very
Grim.
dark.
Grim's right there.
But yeah, like the horns are the same.
And Panda.
The claws are the same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I dig it.
Something happened to Welser.
He became an old man.
He did become an old man.
He became an old
Died
man.
like 4 times in this plot.
Yeah. Overall, I in looking at these cards, you know, I went out on a limb when we first saw the rulers, and now seeing this, and I went out on the limb in the Discord, and I'm gonna be more public about it now. I will put my foot down and say that, in my opinion, this has been the best designed set in Force of Will's history when I consider the following aspects of best designed: lore, artwork, flexibility of cards, like for deck creativity, unique feel in terms of like being able to play multiple different rulers, competitive impact, and casual enjoyment.
Counterpoint.
Feel free.
I think
mean,
Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale was better.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's absolutely fair.
But it is a.
It's like
feat.
It's like so close, right?
It is an absolute feat that they have returned to form so much for this set.
Yeah.
That I'm comparing it to CMF in terms of design.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like I like Legacy Lost more right now, but I'll see how the rest of these cards look.
Yeah, there's still a lot of cards. I mean, like, you know, I think, you know, it's very easily, even with what we've seen so far, it's very easily setting itself up to be in the top 3 with like CMF,
Easily.
Legacy Lost, and this, right? I think we have to see the rest of the set to see if it can overcome Legacy Lost or if it ends up pushing itself over CMF. But I overall easily in the top 3 in terms of design wise.
If they keep this design philosophy consistent like they've been doing, like if it's been consistently good, I can easily see a new Golden Days coming out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And I do think that like comparing EDL to this is like you can see the design philosophy so much clearer. There's just been like slight tweaks about like the shortcomings of EDL to then this set. Which is awesome. Like we just, and you know, I hope we can continue it.
Something very interesting that I've talked about at length before with some friends and on a couple of, you know, 2 other people as well, is that this set reminds, like, design philosophy feels more, it's weird, it feels more Magic the Gathering card design philosophy than like old Force of Will design philosophy. And I've gone on record saying that I love Magic's card design at an individual standpoint, but I hate the game's mechanics. This feels like it's like that perfect marriage between them, with effects that are interesting, that are taking advantage of effects that have been in Magic before, that have never been fully fleshed out, like the split cards going from one side to the other. That's something that Magic players are looking at and being like, that's sick. And I'm like, yes, this is design space.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we can just mess with. It's just intuitive. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see where they take it into even next set. Like, it's one of those things where, like, Alice Origins Cluster, if I can compare my feeling of, like, set to set, right? During spoiler season, AO was, like, all of my focus was on that coming set of AO, right? It was just like all of my attention, all of my interest, all of my wondering was always focused on the set that was about to come out. I didn't really think beyond that. EDL into this is simultaneously driving my hype through the roof for both this set and the rest of the cluster. Like, it makes me so excited even before this set comes out to what else the cluster is going to hold. Whereas for Alice Origin, I don't think I've had that feeling for a very long time of like this set, this design of these two sets. I can't wait until November. Like, it makes me already anxious for November, to see what comes out then. And like, I haven't had that in a while.
Break it this time around. Hoping.
That's the hope. And I think that's kind of a good place to end it too.
Oh, we're not going over the other ones that you spoiled and the light spoilers.
Today? I guess we're not going to go over the light spoilers. I will just quickly kind of just to show them, in case you didn't watch the premiere. We've got Umir, Keymaster of the Outer World. I talk about these more in depth in the exclusive spoiler video we got, so I recommend going to go check that out. And then we've got Apocalypse, which I need to understand some better wording on, particularly with its second cost in terms of being able to play things without their cost. Is if that wording supersedes timing of like when you can cast things. I would err on the side of no, that like you can't use this card on your opponent's turn and then cast something that's not quick cast. But it's Force of Will, and sometimes things are weird. Just put that thought out there. And then good old Necronomicon is, just to show it off here, a cool way. There are so many addition enter effects. Like, they've been exploring that design space. Like, this is my big thought about this, and see if you guys agree. They've been exploring the design space of like enter effects on additions and like using in additions in a significantly different way than they have in the past. That I'm very glad this card exists.
Necessary.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to have. But it also makes me excited for like then, that opens up their freedom to be able to explore that design space more, right? Because they have something to be able to potentially keep it in check. So
can we just talk about Umer's artwork for a second?
Yeah,
because that thing is like beyond words how sick it is. Like, it reminds me of like the Ghost of Christmas Future from the Muppets Christmas Carol. And the thing was horrifying, first of all.
Yeah.
So this thing is just spice.
It's good stuff. So with that, like I said, we're gonna be coming back next Monday with the spoilers that started today and go through this coming Sunday. Just because we want to keep kind of the cycles all together, so we can talk about the cycles all together. So I will say, be sure to come back this Wednesday when we have another Foul Wednesday. Paul's going to be coming down, and we're doing a fun outside of the cube, which has been very, very fun. Currently, Paul is up. I think Paul is up 2-1 in our first to 5 for the cube.
Ooh.
So see if I can get back into it. Secondly, we have a deck building challenge that we gave each other for a Ragnarok off. We're both playing Ragnarok. The rule is that I'm not allowed to play black cards, and Paul's not allowed to play red cards. So I'm not allowed any black cards in my deck or any black will symbols, and Paul is not allowed any red will symbols in his deck. And so we'll see, 1, how we each design Ragnarok with those limitations, and 2, who can come out on top. So that'll be fun. So be sure to come back and check us out for that live stream on Wednesday. And then other than that, we'll see you next week. So we hope you enjoyed it. There's been like 30 of you, and the chat's been super active. It's been awesome to see the chat so hyped about this. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you liked what we did tonight, consider clicking that join button. Join the channel as a member. Give us some financial support. Get access to all kinds of cool perks. Help us get Lumia unlocked. She's over there cheering us on, trying to get us to 100 members. But regardless, subscribe, like, share the video, leave a comment. We like to be able to respond to those people and check us out on those other ways. You can also check in the Ruler School Discord if you haven't already. That community is getting a lot more active, so that's been really awesome. And then thanks to Naoki for joining us tonight. Go give them, like I said, go give them a follow over on Twitch. Maybe we'll have them back on next week to talk more spoiler stuff. And
I'd be down.
yeah, for sure. And until next time, this has been myself, Emo73, and I have been joined by Mike Rance. And then,
bye, guys.
And then, like I said, Naoki. And we'll see you all next time. So until then, class dismissed.
Do your homework.